Welcome back to The Way, everybody. Today we're going to be in a harder part of Galatians 4, but once you slow it down and you really begin to look at what the deal is, you understand just fine, and it actually makes it a lot more applicable than I thought it was at first. So just like a random precursor, don't be afraid to ask questions. A lot of times we're like, I'm just going to skim over it, and then I don't understand it. Oh well. Because it's like we don't want to do more homework in a sense. We kind of got beat down. But I think you should really dive into something. Like, okay, so for this video, if you have anything that you do not understand, if you want to, you don't have to. Comment in the video to explain more about it. So Galatians 4, we're going to be in the back half of it. If you need context, go back to the other videos. All right, Galatians 4, verse 21. Tell me, you who desire to be under the law, do you not listen to the law? For it is written, Abraham had two sons, one by a slave woman and one by a free woman. But the son of the slave was born according to the flesh, while the son of the free woman was born through a promise. Paul is speaking to the Galatians here. We know that this is referencing Abraham and his wife, Sarah, and his wife's servant, Hagar. But what does this mean? Like, it says Abraham had two sons, one by a slave woman, one by a free woman. And then the slave one was born according to the flesh, and the other one was born according to the promise. What does that even mean? Just before I get into it, think about what it means to do something according to the flesh. It means to be like, if I'm seeking to do something on my own, I'm seeking to do something that only I can do and trying to almost validate myself or try to do it my own way. That's what I would think. And he's speaking to some of the believers at the time in this church who are thinking that they need to do every part of the law so strictly, and they need to almost outrun their evil. Like, I have to do this because I did this in the past, and not relying on what Christ said he's going to do. And what did Christ say he was going to do? Christ said he had it covered. He died for that reason. He rose for that reason, to basically say that your sins are, they're gone. I'm the bridge between what you were and what you are now, and that distance you created between God by rebelling, it's closed now. So you don't there's nothing you could do. But his grace calls us to live like him. And once we start looking to him and following what he does and what he says, we start like naturally living a, as you can call it, more fulfilled lifestyle. But in the sense that you're free. You don't have to do it as a life or death scenario. You're doing it because you want to. You're doing it because you love like he loves. You're doing it to show that he cares, So jumping back to verse 23, it says, but the son of the slave was born according to the flesh, while the son of the free woman was born through promise. So this is talking about Abraham's wife, Sarah, and at the time her name was Sarai, but and Abraham's wife's servant, Hagar. So in chapter 16 of Genesis, now Sarai, Abraham's wife, had borne to him no children. She had a female Egyptian servant whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said to Abram, behold, now the Lord has prevented me from bearing children. Go into my servant. It may be that I shall obtain children by her. So Sarai thought she was really old, 80s to 100. She was like, God, I know God promised you in the chapter before this, go read Genesis chapter 15, that there would be a son coming through you. So Sarah had interpreted that from God, being like, well, maybe it's like through me type, but actually it's going to be through my servant. So I'm just going to go ahead and give you my servant and see how well that goes. And it doesn't go well, obviously. And then at the end of verse 2, I want you to look at this. Abram listened to the voice of Sarai. throughout Abraham's life, it had been listen to the voice of the Lord, listen to the voice of God. Now it's listen to the voice of Sarai. You know, she meant well, but what she did is she's like, let me go ahead and help God's promise. You know, it's taken a little bit. I'm physically not able to have kids, so let me just, you know, let me spice up my own way. Let me do it my own way. It didn't work because it's taking the promise and throwing it out the window. And God, but I love this in chapter 17. And God said to Abraham in verse 15, "As for Sarai, your wife, you shall not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall be your name. I will bless her, and moreover, I will give you a son by her. I will bless her, and she shall become nations. Kings of people shall come from her." So God realizes that they chose not to listen to him in that moment and conceive with Hagar and have a son who is Ishmael, who was born according to their way. So God is like, my grace extends to you. You know, I'm giving you something you don't deserve, and I'm continuing the promise, and you shall have a son, and his name shall be Isaac. And that is the child of the promise, something that they didn't deserve. And I want to focus on that because we go back to Galatians 4 and pick up in verse 24. Now, Paul says this, "Now this may be interpreted allegorically. These women are two covenants. One is from Mount Sinai, bearing children from slavery. She is Hagar. Now Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia. She corresponds to the present Jerusalem, for she is in slavery with her children. But the Jerusalem above is free, and she is our mother, for it is written." And then it goes on to basically explain the slave versus free child. And all it's he's showing that the present day Jerusalem, they're relying on the works of the law, and they've already missed the promise. The promise was the Messiah. So they're trying to do the works of the law. You know, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, they're like, I can do this, 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 and I will be made right with God. But they've misinterpreted the scriptures. They've misinterpreted what God told them, and they did it their own way. And so that's how they ended up handing Jesus over to the Romans to be crucified, because they misinterpreted it wrong. In the same way, Sarai misinterpreted what God told Abraham, and they had a son with Hagar, which was not the promise. The promise was for the Messiah, Jesus, to come down and save us from the thing we can't do ourselves. In the same way, God's promise was for Abraham to have a son with Sarah, to do the impossible, so that lineages of people might come through Abram, and they might seek him, and he might be close to them. Because God just wants a relationship. You know, he wants you to be close to him. So we can see the two parallels in this chapter, and I love it. But if you don't ask questions, you would never get to understand that. So please ask questions. Ask why, ask how, and more importantly, ask them to God, and write them down. It helps too. But God bless you guys. I'm glad to be back and doing this. It's a blessing, and hope you have a good day.